Hello again, everyone at I don't know WILIscredia, whether it be the YouTube channel or via Patreon.
Hello.
Emily's here again. Say hi. You already said hello. Good. Finish.
Yeah, I did. It's me, Embo. I am back with CP.
Yeah. So I don't know which. If you're listening to this, and I've done it in order, this is the second half of our Demi Moore double bill. We just recorded something for Indecent Proposal, and we're about to discuss the 2024 Coralie Farge film, The Substance, which I'm really glad we watched this. And it's kind of fascinating that we watched and discussed both Indie's Proposal and The Substance, because there's something too Demi Moore in Indie's Proposal is, the sexual attraction in that film. So
she is smoldering, sizzling perfection in that movie.
Right. So like it's fitting. May I suggest you do a double bill if you happen to listen to both of these audio recordings?
Yes.
Anywho, Emily, The Substance, what do you think?
Possibly one of my favorite films this year.
Ooh.
I haven't seen much in the way of new releases, admittedly, but I didn't know what I was going to make of this movie. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I mean, I love body horror, so that's part of it.
Right.
That's a huge part of it.
That's the thing that, like, I was intrigued. I didn't know about I really need. I promise everyone, I'll get her to see Barbie.
It's on my laptop.
Right. It's in our collection. It'll be weird hearing Emily's take on Barbie after this, but I would have said something like, The Substance is Barbie if you like mixed it up with Requiem for a Dream. It is gnarly. And
I think there are a few shots in this that directly reference Requiem for a Dream.
Oh yeah, the vanishing point shots, especially.
The picture of her on the phone to order the fucking substance.
But yeah, there's a bunch of homages. Like I think you noticed it like right away. The Shining.
Coralie loves horror. You know, there are references to The Shining, to Requiem, to a whole bunch of stuff that just made my heart very happy.
Yeah. So as a film fan, this movie like is just awesome. Just right on.
And The Fly too. We'll get into that a bit later.
Oh, you mean the film The Fly?
Yeah. Brundle Seth. That fly.
Well, so this is a new film, and I'm going to issue a spoiler warning, but I mean, if you're listening to us talk about it for an hour, I don't know.
If you haven't seen it, what is wrong with you? Yeah. Go watch The Substance and come back.
Get on it. You don't have to buy the Blu-ray or anything. You can.
It's on Mubi, isn't it, or something?
If you get Mubi, MUBI, you get a 7-day free trial, and that's really all you need to do is just go there, sign up for the thing, and watch it, and you have 6 extra days to fart around on their service. So it's free. Get on it. And we are not sponsored. Call us, Mubi.
They're not going to call us.
Oh, they will. They'll email.
Don't pay for it.
All right. So here's the synopsis. If you follow the instructions, what could go wrong? A fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. The Substance stars Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid.
Is that how you pronounce it, Qualley?
Yep.
Okay. I will try and remember that. Margaret Qualley, who is the real-life daughter of Andy McDowell. Yep.
It's definitely clear in their hair.
They've got the big bouffant curly. Yeah, the hair I wish I had. But I don't know if Andy herself is still kicking.
Sure.
But I think Demi was a good choice for this movie. As someone who's received a lot of media scrutiny and disordered eating, reproductive problems, like a lot of stuff that is echoed in this movie. I think she was a good choice for it. And Margaret Qualley, she's kind of new on the scene, I would say.
Yeah, she's been around for a little bit, but she's really starting. I mean, I would say with this movie, she's probably going to be a bit higher up in the names tier.
Yeah.
But, there is something to it. I mean, Demi Moore even said that it was difficult for her to approach this role as, Hollywood is an industry of visual appeal, and when you get to a certain age, especially for women, there's a lot to this movie that is very buried in truth.
Yeah, it was brave of her to do, and not brave in the sense of, a 60-year-old woman still doing stuff, how brave. I mean brave in the sense of facing some of her problems that she's faced in the industry head on, confronted them, even if in universe it's a very magnified take on things. I mean, the New Year's Eve ball features topless dancers. This is the world we're living in, apparently. But it's a little exaggerated, but it's not that far from the truth.
Oh yeah, it's quite exaggerated. I mean, we discussed this yesterday. I don't know why workout videos, 80s style workout videos, was the place they went with it. But that's not really a thing anymore. But it was a thing. It was quite popular.
In the world of acting and visual media, there's a certain coming to terms with that women have to do of a certain age, of taking on specific roles, like men too. You know, as a man, when you're old enough to play King Lear, you know, that's a moment where you take stock of your life and how old you're getting. But that's something we're all going to have to do eventually if we live that long, and that's hard to confront and come to terms with. You do feel like you're fading into irrelevance to a degree, that you're not getting the parts that you used to, that people aren't quite as interested.
This movie absolutely jumps into something of a double standard, especially in entertainment, that women, there's well, first of all, there's a double standard with looks and age. Like you could even talk about it with porn. You know, once you turn like 23, you start playing moms. It's just like, what is happening? There is a very bizarre standard with women in the entertainment industry, and I'm glad that they really kind of didn't shy away from very much here.
Some of the people I've seen review this have missed the point.
Oh?
Male reviewers who, you know, they agree that, you know, Demi Moore is looking okay for her age, and then they slave her all over Margaret Qualley. They just missed the point completely.
Well...
Whereas all the gay men I've seen review this are like, Demi Moore is queen, she is bae, how could she look in the mirror and see nothing less than perfection? Which I think is really interesting, that, yeah, she is an absolutely gorgeous woman, whatever age she happens to be.
Well, isn't there some, I mean, the movie
She's 67, playing 50?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
She's looking good.
She looks great for fucking 40.
And even if she didn't, she's an actress who is absolutely fantastic. So
it focuses on like body positivity and things like that you know, you don't necessarily need to be in the entertainment industry to understand. But
I mean, the film doesn't reach this realization. It's about body negativity.
Right. I meant that, but yeah, sure.
So in a roundabout way, it's addressing it, but the characters, unfortunately, that it's quite tragic for them.
Yeah, I like the idea of, you know, you are one. The fact that they split. And, you know, there's a give and take. And unfortunately, you don't, I mean, you do see it with the younger version of herself paying for what the older version of herself does.
We haven't explained what the film's about yet.
All right, go on.
Okay, so Demi Moore plays Elizabeth, who is, as everyone says, an aging starlet. We see her have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that gets cracked and snowed on in Hollywood somehow.
Yeah.
And someone drops their hot dog very gorily all over it, which is foreshadowing. So her 50th birthday, she's wrapping up an exercise video. She gets summarily fired by Dennis Quaid, who is absolutely disgusting with the way he eats his fucking shrimp.
Do you know who his inspiration was for this?
No?
Harvey Weinstein.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, Dennis Quaid's quite an attractive man, to be comparing him to Harvey Weinstein, but I mean, he is called Harvey in the movie, so I mean, there's a link.
Yeah, this movie is many things. It's not subtle all the time.
No.
It's quite on the nose with what it's doing and very explicit about certain things.
It isn't subtle, but at times I feel like they could have gone further too.
Yeah, so he's disgusting. He's in the movie for 8 minutes total, but he's quite memorable in his role. It's just the most...
It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a very squelchy movie. And that was the most horrifying scene by far, him just devouring those fucking shrimp with a lot of passion. So she gets fired. She bumps into an old classmate for a bit, and she's feeling sorry for herself. Car crash happens. She comes out of that without a scratch. She is examined by a young twink of a doctor who's like, "Oh, you're a very good candidate for something."
And he's got this giant liver spot on his arm. It's
a birthmark, I think.
I don't think so. I think they meant that because she started getting them after she was messing around.
Possibly. I think it's interesting that the twink version of him has it as well, because he's also a partaker of the substance and with an older self, and they both have it, which is how we recognize him.
Yeah, well, regardless, they certainly take time to focus on it to make you aware of. I mean, maybe they show that just to let you know that this is younger version of Guy.
That's how I saw it. I don't want to wave it off as like a deformity in case that's just the poor actor's.
Liver spots aren't we just get those. I don't. That's just a sign of aging.
I didn't want to be like, oh God, look what the substance is doing to him, in case it's just a birthmark.
No, I think it was. At least I did. I thought it was intended to be like, look, this is a liver spot from someone who's, not young. Although he's in his tiny twink body.
Anyway, he gives her a pen drive which tells her what the substance is. They demonstrate with a ball of plasticine. They split it in two. One is still ragged looking. One is perky and round and pleasing to the eye.
An egg for the longest time.
Yeah, because they have the egg. That's the first shot of the movie,
in the opening shot, right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
They show how the activator works on the egg yolk.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, yellow ball of plasticine, 1 week for one, 1 week for the other. You can't see what my hands are doing. But for that scene, they're showing off raggedy plasticine, shiny round plasticine.
Mm-hmm.
She picks it up. She takes the activator in her bathroom, and she gives birth terrifyingly from her back, like Alien Covenant style.
Nice, yeah.
To her younger self, who wipes off the mirror, and she's still sticky from the afterbirth, and that's kind of gross.
Mm-hmm.
Something they did about Margaret Qualley's, this character is called Sue, the better version of herself, better in quotation marks. But her skin always looks very new and fresh in a sticky, newborn kind of way that is quite unappealing.
Well, the saturation's also super high.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they both had like flesh suits on because
she had prosthetic breasts and buttocks because and I'm sure that made her feel some kind of way, being given all these assets that young, sparkly, spangly Sue had that are probably not achievable in real life.
Well, ironically, Demi Moore actually has had implants, so I think that's I think you're working your way backwards as far as production is concerned. You're casting Demi Moore and you're trying to get someone to, like, Margaret Qualley is a little less endowed.
Yeah.
If you were to have
both actresses go nude for parts of this movie,
right.
But Margaret Qualley is wearing fake bazoomas.
Right. So if you were to have the better version of Demi Moore be, less well endowed in an industry where sex is the most important thing, it'd be a little hard to follow. Unfortunately so, but I think.
I wonder if they're supposed to be terrifying in a way. At the end of the Stepford Wives, when Catherine sees the robot version of herself stand up and she's got these prodigious, perky set of breasts that are terrifying to her because she realizes this is what has been made in her image, to the perfected version of herself with the large breasts. That's what her husband has commissioned.
Right.
In a way, that's terrifying to her. And if there had been a scene in this, comparatively speaking, I think that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it plays into the Hollywood, the idea of attractive and whatever.
Impossibly pert and glowy and sticky.
Right. And this is why I'm really, you need to see Barbie, because Barbie is kind of the way they shoot that and the way the cinematography is and the way the color is done. It's very bright and just like,
yeah,
it's much. It's a bit much, but it's certainly on purpose. The thing that I haven't really gone back to is all the exterior shots. The only types of cars that they show in the city are sports cars,
rusted out Porsches,
either rusted out or brand new and like hot pink or yellow or red. It's
symbolism,
right? Yes, absolutely. I think there's so many layers to this movie that once it comes out on 4K or whatever, and I'm curious to see what other shit they have on that disc. But
yes,
you all right?
Yep. The screen died. I have it set to 10 minutes, but we keep talking.
Like you do. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of the points that I thought of after the film came out was a possible parallel to the real life Brian Johnson, who has been taking blood or plasma from his younger son in order to achieve a more youthful, to be more youthful, to increase his longevity, even though arguably that's not what that does. But he's been leeching off his own flesh and blood in order to pursue mortality or a better self.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Like
kind of behavior.
adrenochrome?
So this kind of behavior is not unheard of in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
That, you're taking from yourself, your own flesh and blood,
Right.
in order to achieve an ideal that may not even be possible.
Uh-huh.
This leeching behavior. And it kind of goes into, in the movie, this self-hatred on both sides. Elizabeth hates her younger self because she's reckless and irresponsible and taking more than she's due.
Mm-hmm.
And Sue hates Elizabeth because she's an irrelevant old crone who's disgusting and leaves messes, and just, why doesn't she just disappear like women over 50 should? But they're both the same person.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that really interesting.
Well, I mean, we all age, and nothing's going to be perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the film does a decent enough job of doing it. I think they could have done better of showing and telling us, we need to take care of ourselves when we're young, because we do have to live in these bodies when we're old. And I think they get that across certainly fair enough. But there are moments where they could have done more on the Demi Moore affecting Margaret Qualley a bit. I mean, they do it like when she eats, it's like she eats like a maniac. It'd be interesting to see
The binge eating. I don't know if that translates to Margaret Qualley gaining weight. If it's like
anytime Margaret Qualley takes too much time, Demi Moore's character has like a troll
lashes
finger.
out by having a binge and just throwing trash everywhere.
Not only that, but like physically, she's affected by it because she grows that troll finger, and then she's got that gnarly kneecap.
Yeah, the necrosis setting into all her extremities, which is horrifying.
It would be interesting to see it go the other way. I mean, she hallucinates that she has that like chicken nugget in her ass cheek when she's doing the
Sue
workout
does.
thing. Yeah.
We need to talk about the workout sections because...
Go on.
Well, compared to the Jane Fonda-esque 80s-inspired leotard-toting, I mean, Elizabeth, before she is summarily fired, she does that kind of thing. And then Sue replaces her. It's interesting that Sue should feel so trapped in her situation that she goes directly back to that same shithead producer, Harvey, whatever his name is, Harvey Shrimp Eater Dick Face. I mean, she could go to anywhere else, but she's trapped, so she goes back to the same studio, same producer. They stay trapped in the apartment all the time, watching TV, waiting to exist as the other, whatever. They don't move. They're kind of stuck. But so she's doing this new workout called Pump It Up with a bunch of other similarly slim, pert beings. And borderline pornographic, I would say.
Yeah.
The way the camera...
It's certainly heightened.
The way the camera lingers on their bits and pieces, and the slow motion and the glistening skin and the...
This thrusting of crotches and such, sure.
Yeah. It's a lot more explicit, and I think the choreography directly references the music video for Call on Me by Eric Prydz, which back in my day was quite controversial.
Yeah, you just said in my day.
Yeah.
You kids with your substance.
It was 2004. I was a teenager when I saw it, and I was like, shit, could I be watching this in the living room with my family? This is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I told you this. I thought of, it was certainly a thing when I was a kid, and I couldn't help but think of the Axel at the hospital when he's watching the chicks just dancing ass to ass in Friday the 13th final chapter.
Ass to ass.
So
Requiem again.
not again to those listening right now, but yeah.
It's all connected.
The Brit and Twit cinematic universe. So it's similar, and it reminds you of things for a reason, because the industry is very sex-centric, and they really, I mean...
Sex sells, apparently.
Fucking A. I remember, like, when burger commercials that would play on the Super Bowl were very sexy.
Yeah.
And, like, too much so, if that. So, we haven't gotten better about it. What else do you have on the workout scenes, or was it just the comparison to ass to ass?
I think people will view them quite differently. I think women will recognize the objectification almost immediately, and they'll notice, again, Sue's skin is so unnaturally pink and glistening that it's quite off-putting in a way. Like she's literally just been birthed by the egg, is what it looks like. And everything about her is, I don't know, hyper feminine and unobtainable and impossible, and and this is what we're supposed to look like. Oh goodness.
I think it's more to, I think them putting the, like, really focusing on, like, little cracks in Demi Moore's skin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Demi Moore looks as worn down and old as the movie makes her seem, but they also
they make her look like that week-old chicken that gets left out,
but on the
deliberately.
On the flip side, they make Margaret Qualley look like this, like, unnatural plastic thing, like kind of suggesting this is unattainable. Like,
exactly.
People aren't supposed to be like things.
And I wonder if hetero men will get that same message.
Well, I had to come 3 or 4 times before I started thinking about it.
I wonder if they will feel a little bit gross watching those scenes.
What do you mean gross?
I mean that it's just so hypersexualized.
I think unironically people will be turned on by this.
I mean, very possibly. That's what's intended in universe, right?
Sure.
It's supposed to be like the sexy workout hour, 3 minutes.
I mean, it's like you said, the people, some of the reviews that you saw, people talking about
just slavering over Margaret and her stick-on breasts.
Yeah, and her non-real breasts playing a non-real person.
I'm sure this movie is going to give her a complex at some point. I mean, given the themes of the movie, we're not supposed to, go along with the hypersexualization. But the point is that she was made up that way. She is going to be slavered over by men watching this movie. So it's still sort of putting her in harm's way. Even if the movie is directly contradicting the message from Hollywood that that's all women can be, that's still what she was playing.
Right.
She does have some, emotional growth. She still has an arc as such where the hatred for Elizabeth consumes her and she takes too much and she's being reckless, and the self-loathing at close to the film's climax, the fight, which we'll get into. It's very palpable. I'm sure a lot of women watching that are just like, oof, yeah, I've been there. I've had those days. So yeah, that's about where I was on the workout scenes.
What do you got next?
Okay. So, what I found interesting and what I didn't think a lot of people talked about was the lack of female solidarity. And this could just be that LA is very isolating anyway, and that you don't know your neighbors and all this kind of stuff, and that it's glamorous by day and lonely by night. But there are no female friends. There's only the female self-loathing and the male gaze. And if Elizabeth had had even one lady friend to talk through things and to vent and commiserate and build each other back up, we might not be in this situation. She's in the perfect place where she has been retired and she can isolate and be on one week and off the next.
This is certainly a version of Los Angeles or Hollywood that I've painted on the YouTube channel. And in my experience going to the West Coast, there's a lot of
when you made
phony behavior.
Oh, what was it? Retails? Where was that set?
That was. I never had a set in mind, but when I've been to LA for comedy, the people there, you didn't get a sense of, hey, this is a potential friend. It's, there's this phony thing that they're doing it to make sure they look good to get work. And I think this movie lives in that characterized version of LA that I've talked about on the channel.
That is unfriendly.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't say unfriendly. I would say phony more than anything. Cynical? Maybe not cynical. Phony. I'll stick with phony.
Yeah, there was one thing I noticed. It's sort of pointless to apply the Bechdel test because the story is about female isolation and alienation, but it technically does pass.
How?
Because at the very beginning, when Elizabeth has done the video, she walks down that shining hallway and a woman says, "Happy birthday." And it so barely passes that I think they did that to make a point.
Well, her birth is only possible due to a man producing her, so I would say it doesn't.
I knew you were going to say that. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think she talks to another woman in the film. Not even Sue directly.
Yeah, you're
even
right.
When they're both in the room together, they don't talk.
I think even making the hotline, the hello.
Yeah, that's a male voice.
Like that could have been a female
very sexy male voice that never changes no matter how distressed she gets.
He kind of gets a little impatient.
Yeah. So respect it. Respect the balance and you won't have any more issues. That's the voice.
You're right. They can't see you waving your hand.
Yeah, I'm fanning myself.
She's changing her diaper.
Excuse me.
Go on.
Yeah, so he seems to be awake at all hours, this dude, whoever he is, and he's just very monotone the whole time. Possibly this has happened before because there's a handful of lockers that get smaller every time she goes to refill her food.
Yeah, I don't. This is where I've seen some people criticize the film. I don't think this movie is supposed to be giving you like lore. Like,
no.
If you think about why that office exists and why doesn't the gate open all the way, like the movie's not. You're not supposed to learn about the inner happenings of the 503 business.
You're not going to know what this is, but there's an anime called Beauty Water, which covers a lot of the same points. It's about this mystical solution, in this case, one that you bathe in instead of inject, but it can transform you into your ideal self. And the implied lore is that to make this beauty water, people got to die and be dissolved into it to make more of it. They don't really cover how the substance is made. The closest we get is she goes to get more food, and there's an unexplained wailing in the room, in the building. So maybe it's made through nefarious, possibly illegal murdering people. I don't know.
Sequel?
We don't know. I mean, possibly, but we don't necessarily need to know. I mean, it's shady as fuck.
Right. I don't need to know. I'm fine with what they gave us.
And how practical is it even in the long run? They seem to know that people will not respect the rules and the balance, which if they had...
That's part of what makes this a movie too. Though.
Yeah. And it doesn't make sense to respect the balance because, as Elizabeth says, Sue is the only part of her that people like. So it feels like she's just killing time the rest of while she's in her old Matrix self. Slumming it in the apartment, eating chicken after chicken. It's just waiting to exist as
She learned how to bake stuff.
Oh yeah, a patronizing retirement gift was a book on French cooking, which the director is French, and they made that food look so unappealing.
Yeah, that was absolutely on purpose.
Yeah, that was more gross out for the body horror fans. More Foley work. So much squelching. Squelch the movie. So we haven't explained that the way the process works, you activate once, you stabilize every day, which is to say you take the spinal fluid of the other, of the Matrix, and inject it into you. And then every week you swap back. There's a lot of intravenous stuff going on, basically. In real life, I think you'd look like a junkie with the amount you have to stabilize.
No, they just keep... And another reference to Requiem for a Dream. She keeps using the same hole.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be putting any more dope in that arm. Yeah, lots of references to that movie. Yeah. There's an argument to be made this could be about addiction and the two selves that are involved with addiction. Yeah. The one that's reckless and keeps going and doesn't think about the consequences because you're in it and you want things to be good for as long as possible.
I mean, like an umbrella term or an umbrella approach to this is you're addicted to, the celebrity, the appeal that you have. Being young. I mean, we're all kind of addicted to staying young.
I mean, we're content creators, so I don't know what that says about us.
What you're talking about.
Well, arguably I'm not anymore, but
You're currently making content. I tend to disagree with that.
For you.
All right.
You dragged me up here by my hair and strapped me to this wheelie
Don't look
chair.
at me. You wrote me into this.
He wrote me into this. I can't not hear that without the autotune.
Okay. They don't know what you're talking about.
No, they don't. We'll cut this. What else do I have in my notes? Blood in this film. A lot of blood.
There's blood.
Yes. What does it represent? I mean, there's a lot of blood when there's periods of change. Like every time Sue needs to reactivate, her nose bleeds. It features really strongly at the end. There's like a carry moment with just incomprehensible amounts of blood.
That was awesome.
It was.
For as much as I
feels cathartic almost.
Yeah. For as much as I think the movie, if you don't have that big climax, I don't think it's something you could technically call a horror movie because it's like when she has like the bridge troll finger, it's gnarly looking, but is it something that you wouldn't show to a 14-year-old? No. But that third act, fucking hell, they go ham.
Yep. That is just a lot of corn syrup.
Yeah.
Could tie into the whole feminine thing, re-menstruation. At some point, Sue's having problems. She needs to go back to being Elizabeth, and she's bleeding all over the place. And her suitor with the hairy ass is just like, "Oh, you having lady problems?"
Yeah.
Very dismissive. Very like, "Oh, well, it's just, having her lady trouble, her lady secret."
Yeah. Do you think that this? I hope I know the answer. Do you think this movie is feminist? Oh,
see, some people
okay.
have taken issue with this. They see it as, what was the word? Hagsploitation.
I don't know what the fuck that word means.
A recent trend, or a recently noticed trend in horror, is that this fear of older women in particular, the hag, the crone, M. Night Shyamalan, that seems to be a particular fear of his.
Wait.
Both in The Visit and The Beach That Makes You Old.
I just think he doesn't understand. Yes.
American Horror Story.
But that's,
Hereditary, not Hereditary.
Drag Me to Hell. Like that's kind of always been a thing. Like the old witch.
Yeah, but why is that?
Because old women are terrible.
Right.
Right.
But the movie kind of exploits that. It does not shy away from the imagery of her being crooked and old and snapping her limbs in place, and the receding hair and the deep set eyes and and it sort of exploits it, I would say. That is part of the horror of the movie.
So it's not feminist then? Because I think it is feminist, but it kind of is ironically so by leaning into the perception of age and women and everything that happens in Hollywood.
But it's asking us to be scared by it. We're meant to be as horrified as Elizabeth is when she sees herself.
Ironically so, though, I would say.
Well, we're not happy about it. The only moment where she reaches self-acceptance is, spoilers, after the second time she takes the activator. And even then, she's glamorizing herself. She's going out there because she thinks she deserves to. I don't know what the fuck's going through her head. But I don't know, we're supposed to very viscerally feel the horror of her transforming into this crone. It's supposed to make us gasp and go, "Oh, how dreadful."
Well, isn't there's horror in doing these things to stay relevant, to...
a criticism of Ari Aster is that he features people with, let's say, unusual facial features or flat-out deformities, like in Midsommar. The guy who's deliberately inbred and seems to have been included just for a shock frame in the trailer. He's drawn criticism for that. Like, are you exploiting people with disabilities, or...
Well, no, is it exploiting it if you can relate to being horrified of going to such great lengths to keep yourself in shape and be appealing, attractive, and all these things, and ultimately just...
It's a relatable horror, I guess you could say, for the women. I don't know if the men will get that.
Well, certainly the climax where you're on stage and you're fucking worst, and it's like, look what you've made me do. Kind of one of those moments, no?
Yeah, I think certain men would read that as, Eliza Sue's punishment for her own feminine self-destructive arc, that she brought it upon herself in a way that she's made herself into the monster.
I would have interpreted it as this is what our standards have created.
Yeah, that's another way. I was looking into a video called The Simulacra of Feminine Performance that was related to this video, and that there's different stages of feminine performance until the very last stage when it's feminine, but it no longer represents, like when she's literally hacking up a breast on stage. Like, it's feminine, but it's not anything we recognize.
It's like a tit sack.
Yeah, it's a deformed parody of a parody of itself, if you know what I mean. So that's the progression that we see. So that's kind of the arc of performing femininity, that it becomes more idealized and polished, and then into something that is not attainable or achievable, then into just something warped and bizarre.
Yeah, just things for reasons. Just
like, how many people now feel compelled to inject filler and stuff into their faces until they become a great big saggy balloon?
Quite a bit.
Yeah. How many people take Ozempic maybe without doctors' supervision, and look what it does to them, unfortunately. Yeah.
But what's the lesson? Ooh, that's a scary movie. Thank God I don't turn into a 3-personed monster beast on stage.
And we crucify women for, getting unnecessary surgeries and ending up with faces that we're not happy with, they're not happy with. Like,
that's why I think it's more like
people have probably dragged Demi under the bus, like, oh God, what work has she had done? Like, that's what Hollywood does to you. You feel compelled
it's
to...
their standards.
Yeah.
It's what their standards have done to us.
Mm-hmm. So I would hope that people would get that message from the film. I think it might go over some people's heads.
Of course it will.
Yeah. So that's my answer. Is it feminist? Depends who's watching.
Well, so the film itself, never mind who's watching, do you think it's a feminist film?
I think pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was kind of open and closed, but the fact that you're kind of stammering on it.
The other problem is that it does exploit... Margaret Qualley being made to wear that leotard and show off, even if they're not her body parts, being in the industry, making any kind of movie at all, and being objectified, sexualized is kind of harmful to the actress.
I don't agree with that. I think for the sake of giving that perspective, you kind of have to do that.
It's like, we were talking about Adrian Lyne, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way he shot his Lolita, the way it romanticized and dwelled on the body of Dominique Swain, that could be harmful to Dominic Swain in real life. It gives male viewers that angle, that perspective, and that the only way to morally do a Lolita adaptation is to animate it so that no actresses are harmed, so that no actresses are portrayed at that age, the nymphette in Humbert Humbert's mind, if that makes sense.
Right, but Margaret Qualley, that's not her body, so she's wearing a body suit for all intents and purposes. So, like, what is the harm there? She's done nude scenes prior. For the sake of the material, that's what that character is.
Okay, in other films, though, why are the nude scenes being written?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
There are moments where it makes sense as far as the script is concerned, and I would say 90% of the time it's just, we need to get 17 to 24-year-old boys watching this, so tits.
The male viewers to whom these scenes are geared are not asking those questions of whether it's necessary or relevant to the movie's themes.
Right.
They are seeing a body that they can drool over.
Right. As someone who has drooled many a time in my youth, I get it. And
that's not to say that Margaret and Demi don't have moments where they do tremendous acting. The part where Margaret is falling to pieces, she loses, like in The Fly, first her teeth and then her fingernails and then her ear.
Mm-hmm.
And just the horror on her face, the profound, terror at the fact that she's falling apart in front of herself. That's credit to her. That's hard to do.
But again, I think the messaging of the movie is to fulfill, an industry's standards. You're also destroying yourself.
Mm. It's unfortunate that to portray the standards, they have to adhere to them.
Yeah.
That's my only complaint, really.
Okay. Yeah. Better the devil you know.
Mm-hmm. The way that the music was used in this, the way light and shadow were used, I thought you would find that interesting. So LA is known for being a perpetually sunny place, except when it snows that one time.
For the sake of this sequence in the beginning.
But the lighting used for Elizabeth and Sue are very different. And that had to have been on purpose, right?
Sure.
You noticed that.
Yeah. And I will make it my work to get us to watch Revenge. Because I think Luke said we should see it. And now especially because she's certainly got an eye. The visuals are certainly something. There's a lot to notice. Like you brought it up, the vanishing shot. Like it very, very Requiem for a Dream with a lot of cinematography. And yes, a lot of lighting. A lot of the color is certainly... Yeah. There's a lot.
Sue enjoys the sun. Elizabeth is continuously kept in shadow.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is that in the bathroom where they switch, it's very bright in there, but it's also cold. So it's kind of like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, white.
Yeah.
They're missing something.
Speaking of explicit music videos, the bit where she's hammering the wall through, I was thinking Benny Benassi.
Satisfaction?
Yeah. With the power tools. And the Why is that a theme in music videos? Women just doing demolition shit.
You'd have to, I don't know. focus. What are we talking about right now?
Yeah. I don't know. Anything else you would want to?
No. I think it's
So the climax, the whole Monstro Alyssa Sue section,
mm-hmm.
where she goes back, she reactivates, being like, "Please give me a new body."
Yeah, after deciding to kill it off.
I'm very poor planning on Sue's part, killing Elizabeth, because she needs the activator fluid from her spine. She's not going to get that anymore.
I'm curious to see if anybody's interpreted that sequence as something of an allegory for abortion.
Possibly. What is the fluid called? It's not called abortion fluid. It's exterminator fluid or something?
I don't remember.
Oh, I remembered another thing that someone brought up, is that it could represent the animosity between mother and daughter. A lot of mothers feel that their daughters are growing beautiful while they fade in looks, and they're almost like, she's stealing my beauty. She's taking my place.
Mm-hmm.
And, then there's that back and forth, that mutual distrust and hatred that occurs between mother and daughter. And that it could represent that, especially in the fight scene that occurs.
Yeah.
That Elizabeth is finally being usurped. After all she did for Sue, and after all the abuse she's taken, that's where they're at.
Yeah. I think they kind of nail it. They cover what they need to cover as far as a horror film is concerned by having this crazy body horror sequence.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I said it before, you've destroyed yourself, both your younger self and older self, and yourself proper, and it's all for their standards. And as far as they're concerned, you're hideous monsters. So, like, what do you have to show for it after all that?
Mm. So she goes to do this New Year's show that she's been planning for months. She's been sucking all the fluid out of Elizabeth in order to prepare, because that's a lot of work to do, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
She starts falling apart. She pulls out her teeth, which is a very visceral sequence. We've all lost baby teeth, so we kind of know what that's like. That it's very bizarre.
I don't like talking about it, but yes.
Yeah, we both
Teeth
had teeth
suck.
trouble. So
Teeth suck.
Yeah. A couple of times in my life, I've been, chewing on something and I feel that crack as my rotten tooth just breaks in half. So, yeah, that felt very visceral. The fingernails in the ear, not so much, but, they're doing the fly.
What did you take from her stapling, like, the magazine image of her over her face?
I mean, that goes to show there was nothing wrong with you to begin with, right? She becomes Monstro Alyssa Sue.
Mm-hmm.
She becomes this creature who's all smiles, like Harvey, the producer, recommends. Like, pretty girls should always smile. So suddenly she's got 15 sets of teeth.
She actually has no teeth at that moment. It's like, I
She's
can't
got
smile.
Elizabeth's face on her back in a permanent scream.
Yeah, like, mm-hmm. Very, very
She can barely talk.
horrifying.
But for some reason, she decides that, you know what, I'm going to accept myself. So she puts the dress back on. The earrings, she kind of stabs into the side of her head.
Yeah.
She curls her singular strand of hair and burns it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then she puts Elizabeth's face back on, either to pass to get into the building, which doesn't seem likely, or because she realized that maybe this is the best I'm going to look, and there was nothing wrong to begin with, and then what have I done? She goes back in, she imagines an aisle of people adoring her like they used to do.
Yeah, hallucinates.
She goes on stage and she's like, I'm so happy to be with all of you tonight. And then she hawks up a tit, drops that on the stage. Everyone starts screaming.
Mm-hmm.
The men, notably, rush on stage to bash her in, even though she is insisting she's still Elizabeth, she's still Sue.
Right.
And finally, she gushes just an obscene amount of blood, more blood than could possibly be in her body, as a statement of her rage or just catharsis, like this is the end. She's just covers the entire hall, including one little girl who's dressed up like Sue in the little sparkly dress. So she's probably quite traumatized. And then finally she crawls outside, bursts. Elizabeth's face from off the back of this thing crawls onto her Walk of Fame star. And she looks up at the night sky with the stars and she imagines glitter falling down.
Mm-hmm.
And then just melts into a puddle, much like that gory hot dog that, at the beginning.
Way the movie opens, yeah.
And that was the movie.
That is the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the third time I've said it. I think it's a fantastic job of showing the things that people in the public eye will put themselves through to meet their just ridiculous standards, and in the end, you have nothing to show for it, and nobody's appreciative of it.
And the most freakish thing you can do is accept yourself.
Yeah.
Because then people will scream at you like you just crawled out of the bell tower. Yeah, that's the message.
Yeah, and it's weird. I really need you to see Barbie because
Yeah.
just a year later, kind of similar messaging, but like you brought up earlier, I think people won't interpret the messaging from both movies. They'll get a very surface level thing from both of them, and you know, the warning signs are there, but I don't know. Creepy shit. But
I would say this is still quite a fun movie. I had a lot of fun watching it. It was campy at points. That the visual effects and the body horror stuff was really well done.
Yeah. It's certainly a lighter experience to something like Requiem for a Dream. Even though it shows lows at very disgusting lows, it's not quite so miserable.
No.
But yeah, I certainly...
Because everything is sort of hyperbolized and brightly lit and so forth. Should I do that line again?
No.
Okay. Because everything was hyperbolized and brightly lit and everything, it's still quite a lot of fun to watch. This just extreme view of scummy Hollywood producers and softcore porn on the TV, and everyone in Hollywood sucks.
Yeah. It's funny because, I mean, we talked about it, maybe not in this recording, but the sexual standards in America are they're actually kind of prude. But in this universe, you know, you have topless dancers for a New Year's Eve thing, and people have children in the audience.
What world?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a funny way of showing Hollywood in that light, about how sexuality isn't really...
You know, it reminds me again of Poor Things, which took place in a fictionalized version of our world. And I wonder if some of that was to escape the criticism about the realism of what our main character goes through. It's not exactly what we know, but it's not far from the truth.
Yeah. I think certain messages in certain filmmakers' hands are effective and don't need to be accused of being woke. And something like Poor Things, I mean, Barbie's been accused of it a couple of times. The Substance, you know, with a different creator, with different dialogue, this could be accused of being a woke movie. And, you know, it's got similar messaging, but, you know, they don't just fucking beat you over the head with it.
And for as grim as some parts of the movie can be, they don't delve completely into certain subject matter that would portray even more serious female suffering, because that's not what the story's about. And we want to spare them at least that. You know, like in the Minions movie, when they skip over the fact that the Minions need an evil master, but they just weren't around during the 1940s. Conveniently. Because they don't want to address that, what if Hitler had minions? Yeah. They just write around that.
What are you talking about right now? Minions and Hitler? Where do we go?
I'm just saying that the movie world is constructed in a way that serves the story without being... Because if it was too gritty and realistic, that would detract from some of the points they're making, and it would be unnecessary, like suffering porn. So they don't go there. Yeah. And I think that's fine.
That's why it's an easier watch than Requiem for a Dream. Yeah, and I think if you're willing to put yourself through all this shit to appease people like Hollywood, you're kind of complicit.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, but this was a fun movie. I would watch it again. I do like body horror, and I do like the effects that went into this. I think it's well paced. I agree.
I agree. Apparently it's over 2 hours. It's 2 hours.
Doesn't
21
feel
minutes.
like it.
Right. It's a very brisk 2 hours 21 minutes. Yeah, I certainly I want to see if there's a physical copy where they have extras like director commentary, things like that.
This is one of the few times where I would probably get this on not DVD, Blu-ray.
4K,
whatever.
Go higher.
Yeah, but I would like to have a copy and watch it more than once. This would probably make one of my favorites.
Yeah, we'll have it. So I have it as a 4.5 out of 5, which would be a 9 out of 10 for those playing math at home.
Yeah, I think I'd call this a 9.
Nice. Yeah, agreeing. We're high-fiving, everyone.
That was a shitty high five. Let's do it.
Yeah, do a better high five.
Yeah.
Not that they can see it. All right, so Emily, thank you for joining me. Thank you to those of you who are listening. If you've seen The Substance, let us know. However, you can comment what you thought of it. If there's any other films that you think are similar, any suggestions for my body horror loving wife. And I promise you, at the very least, I'm sure you'll probably see it whenever it happens, but we'll have watched Strange Darling at some point. Whether or not we have extra content, that remains to be seen. And I will try to have it that Barbie is taken in by Emily as well. I'm curious to see what you would have to say about Barbie after seeing this. So a lot of similarities, I would say. For Emily, I am Charles, otherwise known as CeePo. Emily, last words.
Bleh.